He walked out of prison after serving 20 years for a crime he swore he never committed. His own wife had taken the stand. She looked him in the eye and buried him. Now she had a new husband, a new life. But the moment he got out, he paid them both a visit. By the time police arrived, 2 people were dead. This isn't just a story about revenge. It's about what happens when justice gets twisted. If you're into real stories that leave your heart racing, hit that subscribe button now, because this one will leave you stunned. His name was Marcus Ellison, a quiet man from Baton Rouge with a strong work ethic and a past he kept buried. He met Danielle at a local church event. She was warm, charming, and had a smile that disarmed even the hardest man. Within months, they were inseparable. Marcus worked 2 jobs, auto repair by day, security at night. Danielle was in nursing school. People called them the perfect couple. But behind closed doors, things weren't so smooth. Danielle had ambition. She wanted more than rent-to-own furniture and late-night shifts. Marcus didn't mind living modest. Danielle did. He noticed her pulling away, longer hours at the hospital, fewer texts, late nights with no explanation. But he trusted her. Until one night a robbery changed everything. The police found stolen jewelry, a loaded handgun, and $5,000 in cash in the trunk of Marcus's car. Danielle was the one who tipped them off, and when it came time to testify, she didn't hesitate. The courtroom was packed. Local news crews hovered by the doors. Everyone wanted to see the man accused of armed robbery and possession of illegal weapons. But no one expected his own wife to walk in and take the stand against him. Danielle sat straight, calm, almost cold. She told the court she had suspicions for months, that Marcus had started hiding things, that he kept odd hours, that she once saw him tucking a gun under the seat of his car. Marcus shook his head the entire time. He looked straight at her, heartbroken. He thought she'd come to clear his name. Instead, she painted him as a criminal. The prosecutors didn't need much else. No fingerprints, no witnesses, just Danielle's testimony and the evidence found in his trunk. His lawyer told the jury Marcus had never been in trouble, that he'd never even owned a weapon. But it didn't matter. 12 jurors believed her. They convicted Marcus Ellison on 3 felony counts, and the judge gave him 20 years. 20 years for a man who had never even raised his voice at the woman who sent him away. Prison changed Marcus. At first he held on to hope. He told himself Danielle would come clean, that she'd walk in one day and tell the truth. But days turned into weeks. Weeks into years. She never showed. He stopped calling, stopped writing, stopped believing. Inside, he kept his head down. He worked in the laundry unit, ate in silence, never joined a gang. But the system had a way of grinding men down. He lost weight. He lost his parents. Both passed within 2 years of his sentence. He couldn't even attend their funerals. By year 5, something in Marcus snapped. Not violently. Quietly. He stopped praying. Stopped talking about freedom. Other inmates said he had a look in his eyes like he was watching the world through glass, but one thing kept him going. A rumor. A cousin who visited told him Danielle had remarried. Same city, new husband. Living in the same house Marcus once paid rent for. That was the moment Marcus stopped counting years and started counting down. Marcus Ellison walked out of Angola State Prison on a cold Friday morning. 20 years gone. Just like that. No family, no welcome, just a prison-issued duffel bag, a bus voucher, and a stale breakfast sandwich. But what hurt more than the silence was the world that kept spinning without him. Billboards had changed, phones had changed, even the buses looked different. But one thing hadn't changed. Danielle still lived in Baton Rouge, and now she was Danielle Harper. Married to a man named Jordan, tall, clean-cut, worked in IT. They lived in a 3-bedroom house on East River Street. Marcus knew because he looked it up on the public record his first night out. He didn't go to a halfway house, didn't visit parole. He went straight to a public library, typed her name, and stared at that new wedding photo like it was a funeral program. 20 years locked away. And she got a happy ending? Not anymore. It was Sunday afternoon. Danielle had just come back from the grocery store. Jordan was in the garage working on the lawnmower. The neighborhood was quiet, suburban, peaceful, like nothing bad could ever happen there. She turned with a bag of oranges in her hand and froze. Marcus was standing at the end of the driveway. Same eyes, same posture, just older, harder, emptier. She dropped the bag. He didn't say a word, didn't yell, didn't raise his hands. He just stared. Danielle called for Jordan. Her voice cracked. By the time Jordan stepped out, Marcus was already halfway to the porch. Jordan tried to stand between them, told Marcus to back off. Marcus smiled, just slightly, then pulled something from his coat pocket. Jordan lunged. Neighbors would later say they heard shouting, then 2 loud pops. When the police arrived, Marcus was sitting on the front steps. Both bodies were inside. He didn't run, didn't resist. He just looked up at the officer and said, "She lied and he took my place." The first officer on the scene said it was too quiet. No sirens, no screaming, just Marcus, sitting on the steps like he was waiting for a ride. Inside, Danielle was found in the hallway, 1 shot to the chest. Jordan was in the living room, face down near the couch. No signs of forced entry, no signs of struggle. But in Marcus's coat pocket, they found something chilling. A folded wedding photo. Not Danielle and Jordan's, his, from 1998, still perfectly creased. On the back, written in ink, 1 sentence, "She gave me life, then took mine." The neighborhood was in shock. Most had no idea Danielle's new husband was her second. Even fewer knew her first had just been released from prison. News vans lined the street for days. Reporters called it the revenge of a broken man. Some called Marcus a monster. Others weren't so sure. Old friends of his said he was never violent, never angry. But 20 years in a cage can change any man. And betrayal, can finish the job. Inside the interview room, Marcus didn't ask for a lawyer. He didn't ask for water, didn't ask what he was being charged with. He just stared at the detective, waiting. When they finally started the tape, the detective asked him 1 question. "Why'd you do it?" Marcus leaned back in the chair. His voice was calm. "She lied. She didn't just send me to prison. She made me disappear." He told them everything. That he knew about the new marriage, that he had waited 20 years for that moment, that he didn't feel regret, only relief. But then came something no one expected. Marcus said Danielle had set him up, that she had been seeing someone else even before the robbery, and that the robbery was real, just not his. He claimed she used his car to move the stolen goods, planted the weapon, and when things got too risky, she gave his name. He had no proof, no evidence. But then he said something that made the detective pause. "Check the VIN on that car. The one they impounded. It was hers. She bought it. But it was still registered in my name." That wasn't in the trial. No one had ever brought it up. Detectives took note, quietly, and stepped out of the room. What they found next cracked everything open. The detective called in a favor. He requested the original case file from 20 years ago, evidence logs, transcripts, even the vehicle impound documents. Most of it was buried in archives, faded papers, dusty boxes. But 1 sheet stood out. The car, Danielle said, belonged to Marcus. The one police searched during the robbery arrest was in her name. Purchased 3 weeks before the bust. The registration hadn't been transferred yet. But the title? It was hers. It meant Marcus may have never even known what was in that trunk. It meant the evidence might have never legally tied back to him. And it raised a darker question. Why wasn't that brought up in court? Digging deeper, they found Danielle had filed a complaint with local police 2 months before the arrest. She claimed Marcus had violent moods and was hiding something, but no follow-up report, no witnesses, just her word. And then, tucked in the evidence photos, was a blurry image, a security cam still from a gas station. It showed a woman, Danielle, opening the trunk, the night before the bust. It had never been entered into evidence, never shown to the defense. Had someone helped cover it up? Was Marcus telling the truth? The DA's office reopened the file. Quietly, carefully, because if what Marcus claimed was real, then the woman he killed wasn't just a liar. She might have stolen his life. On purpose. The media turned the case upside down. What started as a clean-cut murder made headlines across the country. Man kills ex-wife after 20 years in prison. That was the first headline. But a week later, it changed. Did she set him up? And then, did the justice system steal this man's life? The district attorney's office was under fire. Journalists dug into Danielle's testimony from 20 years earlier. There were holes, inconsistencies, statements she made on the stand that didn't line up with the police report. But it was too late. Marcus wasn't facing a wrongful conviction hearing anymore. He was sitting in jail. Again. This time, for double murder. His new public defender requested a psychiatric evaluation, not to plead insanity, but to show what 20 years of betrayal had done to him. The results were chilling. The psychologist wrote, "This man's sense of time stopped the moment he was sentenced. He never adjusted to prison. He simply waited to come home." But that home didn't exist anymore. A grand jury was called. They reviewed the new evidence. The car title in Danielle's name, the missing gas station photo, the inconsistencies in her sworn testimony. They also reviewed Marcus's confession, his calm words, his steady hands. And still, they were divided. Some said he was manipulated, framed, and left with nothing but rage. Others said that no matter what she did, taking 2 lives made him a killer. The prosecution struggled. A second-degree murder trial would bring everything out. Old secrets, DA mistakes, possibly lawsuits, public backlash. So they made a decision. No trial. Instead, they offered Marcus a deal. 30 years with the possibility of parole after 15. But Marcus said no. He told his lawyer, "I already did 20 for something I didn't do. I won't spend another day pretending I'm the monster." So the case went to court, but it didn't last long. After only 2 weeks of pretrial hearings, a mistrial was declared. A key piece of evidence was lost during the original investigation. The case collapsed, and the state was left with a man they couldn't convict and couldn't set free. Marcus was transferred to a psychiatric facility pending review. And just like that, there would be no trial, no verdict, only silence. Marcus Ellison was never convicted, and he was never released. After the mistrial, the state quietly placed him in a long-term psychiatric unit just outside Shreveport. Not prison, but not freedom either. Visitors weren't allowed. Media inquiries were denied. His lawyer filed multiple motions to get him transferred or retried. All were ignored. For the public, the story faded. The cameras left. The headlines stopped. But inside that facility, Marcus waited. A nurse who worked the night shift said he kept a folded photo beside his bed. Not of Danielle, but of his parents, the only ones who ever believed him. He rarely spoke, rarely ate. He just sat by the window each morning, watching the gate, like he was still waiting for someone to open it. As for Danielle and Jordan, their families held a joint funeral. The service was closed casket. No one from Marcus's side was invited. The case would go down in state history as one of the most controversial mistrials on record. But the deeper question remains. What do you call a man who was punished for a lie, then punished again for telling the truth? Is he a killer, a victim, or both? Let us know what you think in the comments, and if you want more real stories like this, ones that make you question everything, hit that subscribe button, because the next one is even darker.